Hello everyone and welcome to another class of Amazon Redshift. So we will discuss about Amazon Redshift management. So we can manage cluster access and security to cluster. We can monitor clusters and databases. So let's discuss about managing clusters. Now depending on user data warehousing needs, user can start with the small single node cluster and easily scale up to larger multi-node cluster as requirement changes. User can add or remove compute nodes to the cluster without any interruption to the service. This is creating and managing cluster. That means how we can create and how we can manage a cluster. So basically we know that cluster is a set of nodes which consist of leader node and compute nodes. So next we can reserve our compute needs. Reserving compute nodes offers significant saving compared to hourly rates that we pay when you provision compute nodes on demand. Creating cluster snapshots. Snapshots are point-in-time backups of a cluster. There are two types of snapshot, automated and manual. Amazon Redshift stores these snapshots internally in Amazon S3 by using an encrypted SSL connection. If user needs to restore from a snapshot, Amazon Redshift creates a new cluster and imports data from snapshot that users specify. This is managing cluster. Next, we have access and security to cluster. So, access and security in Amazon Redshift cluster have many features like AWS account and IAM credential. We have security groups, encryption, and SSL connections. In AWS account and IAM credential, Amazon Redshift cluster is only accessible to AWS accounts that create the cluster. Within AWS account, user use the AWS IAM service to create user accounts and manage permissions for those accounts to control cluster operations. Next, we have security groups. Identity and access management credential only control access to Amazon Redshift API related resources, Amazon Redshift console and command line interface. To enable access to the cluster from SQL client tools via JDBC or ODBC, we require or user use security groups. If user using the EC2 Classic platform for Amazon Redshift cluster, then user is on Redshift security groups. If user is using EC2 and VPC platform for Amazon Redshift cluster, then user is on VPC security groups. Next we have encryption. When user provision the cluster, he or she optionally choose to encrypt the cluster for additional security. When you enable encryption, Amazon Redshift stores all data in user created tables in an encrypted format. That means whenever we enable encryption, Redshift store all data in user created tables and the data is in encrypted format. User can use either AWS key management service or hardware security module to manage encryption keys. The only way to switch from encrypted cluster to a non-encrypted cluster is to unload the data and reload it to a new cluster. Encryption applies to a cluster and any backups. Next we have SSL connections. User can use SSL encryption to encrypt the connection between your SQL client and its cluster. Next we have monitoring cluster. There are many features related to monitoring clusters like database auditing, events and notification, and performances. Let's discuss about database auditing. Audit logging. User can use the database audit logging feature so that it can track information about authentication attempts, connection, disconnections, changes to database, user definitions, and queries run in the database. This information is useful for security and troubleshooting purposes in Amazon Redshift. The logs are automatically stored in Amazon S3 bucket. For monitoring with the help of events and notification, Amazon Redshift tracks events and retain information about AWS account. For each event, it reports information such as data to event occurred, when it is occurred, description of an event, and event source. For example, a cluster, parameter group, or a snapshot. And also the source ID. User can create Amazon Redshift event notification subscription that will specify a set of event filters. Under performances, Amazon Redshift provides performance matrices and data so that user can easily track the health and performance of your clusters and databases. Amazon Redshift uses CloudWatch matrices to monitor the physical aspects of the cluster, such as what is the CPU utilization, latency, and throughput. It also provides query and load performance data to monitor the database activity in the cluster. This is about performances. Next, we have databases. Amazon Redshift creates one database when user provision a cluster. Now that means user can use this cluster to load data and run queries. More databases can be created by using or running a SQL command. We are having a term here which is a super user. When a cluster is provisioned, users specify a master user. Master user having access of all the databases that are created in a cluster. Master user can create additional super users and user. That means master user having a control of all the users. That means whether it to create super users or users. Amazon Redshift uses parameter groups so that it can define behavior of all databases in a cluster, such as date presentation style or floating point precision. So this is about databases. So in today's class we have discussed about how to manage Redshift. Thank you so much.